was a good day today. I made a decision finally in terms of my audio tape project. I've decided the Caliphone tape recorder is not a good quality machine, even by bare bones standards. It just isn't going to work because you can't get a good sound out of it. Even by cheap cassette tape standards, this micro cassette is better. So that means I'm going to be, for now, using micro cassette with a handheld or an external microphone, and then I have a special project coming.
Well, hey everybody, good day. This is Joe. Hey, well, if you remember a video that I did, I posted late yesterday, late on Monday, about a little personal essay on a piece of ground. And then, if you might remember, a week or so ago, I did a video about cassette tape, re-exploring my past using compact cassette tapes and micro cassette tapes. Well, the video last night, the personal essay I made, I used the shoebox cassette recorder, the one I ordered online, the one I did the previous video on. I used it in the city park with this AKG microphone, with the idea of just kind of exploring what cassette recorders can be used for as field recordings. I knew that this Caliphone recorder was inexpensive, so I knew that I wasn't buying like top-end gear here. But I had several issues, one of which was intermittently the buttons would stick. Notably, I think it was the play button. When you're playing, you couldn't stop it. The play button would stick, and you'd have to momentarily hit the record button slightly to get the play button to pop up. The other thing, though, that I thought was a little more serious was really the playback. The audio on playback had a buzz and a humming noise. I wasn't able to find like an external microphone solution that would work. What I did late last night is I sat down with the Caliphone recorder with my Radio Shack micro cassette recorder, and I used 3 different handheld or external microphones. I used this handheld dynamic AKG, and then I used 2 other microphones. Both of them were electric condenser, kind of directional or shotgun mics. Anyways, I used all 3 of these microphones and different record levels, like in terms of my voice, playing back the audio using headphones, carefully listening, and I determined that I was actually getting a better quality sound overall with this little Radio Shack micro cassette recorder. Now, there's a little bit of more noticeable background hiss with the micro cassette recorder, as you would expect, for the tracks on the micro cassette are thinner, so there's less signal, and the tape moves at a slightly slower speed. So, having said that, this morning I made the command decision to return the Caliphone recorder. So I boxed it up and shipped it off today. So yesterday when I did that video in the park using this dynamic microphone, of course you might be able to tell there's no windscreen on it. And so even as calm of a day as it was, I was getting a little bit of wind noise in the mic just from moving the microphone around a little bit too fast. And so I knew I needed a microphone a little bit better protected. And also I think I wanted to use a more directional mic in terms of doing voice work out in the field, just because of all the background noises that can be distracting to you. So I've really been experimenting with this Shure lens hopper. This is one of my main microphones that I use. Now I wanted a way to hold this microphone so that I wouldn't have the hand noise of holding it. I never really throw anything away or try not to. This little handheld tripod is a toy tripod that came with the Taiko Kids Cam. If you don't remember, back in the maybe late 90s, there was this black and white video camera device that looked like a camcorder called the Taiko Kids Cam. It didn't actually record anything. It just output audio and video signal, and the idea was you had a long cable, you plug it into your VCR. It was designed for kids to pretend like it was a camcorder, but it recorded externally onto another VCR. Anyway, it came with a little handheld tripod. The 2 little handle parts here is for wrapping the long cord around, but it also has a retractable or extendable little tripod thing, which is kind of cool if you're on a little tabletop setting and you want to have a microphone. This is a really super lightweight but really rugged little toy tripod, and it has a locking thing and a primitive ball head so you can angle the microphone. Very lightweight. So this is a model, a Micro 28, and as indicated by the red letters there, this is voice operated, VOX. That has a tape counter, a little 3-digit tape counter with a reset button, and now you push the stop button. It's the eject for the cassette, and you close it like that. If you look on the side here, all the main controls are, you have, starting at your left here, you have a record button, playback button, rewind button, fast forward, and stop, and the stop also functions as the eject. Then there is a speed switch between 2.4 or 1.2 centimeters per second. The 1.2 is pretty grainy and pretty hissy. It's really only used if you need the extended record time for like voice dictation or whatever. There is a built-in microphone right here. These are monaural formats, these microcassette recorders. On the top of the unit here, you have this pause switch. Pausing it in any one of the modes will stop the motor. So you can go into record, pause, like set it to pause, hit the record button, and then you could release it from pause at any time. The usefulness of that is so you don't get that little click at the end of the recording. You can kind of start and stop the recording and make a little edit while you're going. There is a noise cut in or out, and it's really just a filter. The noise cut in is just going to roll off the high end so you don't get as much hiss. You will lose a little bit of high frequency detail though. Then you have the volume control right here. It's a little wheel and it is numbered, which is cool. And then this sliding switch is between voice operated in the record mode is either out or in, and in playback it's either fast playback or normal playback. So between the two tape speeds and the two playback speeds, you actually have 4 different speeds of playback that you can have. And then finally there is an indicator light, but it lights up red, indicating you're recording. Okay, now on this other side you have a 3-volt DC jack if you want to power it from a 3-volt AC adapter, and then there is an external mic input and earphone output right there. There is an index marker system. You can push an index mark and it'll make a little index beep on the tape that you can use to find various recordings. It's sort of a way of marking things. But it's a pretty good quality recorder. It's made of metal. You can transition your speeds while you're playing. So in other words, if you play, you go backwards. You can go backwards while you're playing. You go forwards. Like that. And then you can also flip it to the fast speed.
The shoebox cassette recorder that I bought from B&H Photo, and I returned it today. What, you say? Yes. I returned.
Yeah, so you have a lot of different flexibility in terms of speeds with these machines, and the transport is sophisticated enough to enable you to hit fast forward or rewind while you're in the play mode. It's designed for that. So these are really high quality little units. I don't know exactly who made this. I suspect it might have been Olympus, because they had a lot of nice little microcassette recorders back in the day, back in the late 80s and early 90s. If you went to an electronics store, you would have seen the Olympus machines were always the skinniest, the smallest, the microest size, and they had the best features. Of course, with the Shure lens hopper VP83 microphone, you can simply plug it into the old mic jack right there, and you got yourself a nice little field recording kit, microcassette based. It's really pretty neat. You can plug it in, and you can actually, once you get the recorder started recording, like the top button here is the record button, you kind of just hold it in your hand pretty much like that. And you can walk around in a public place and just do recordings. I really think the age is past of really high quality construction and design. And so I went on to eBay and I've purchased a unit. It's not here yet, and I'm going to certainly do another video when it does come here. But suffice it to say that I'm going to be getting another compact recorder in to review, and hopefully it'll be working. Well, we don't know, when you're buying something used off of eBay, but that's going to be what I'll be doing. But in the meantime, if I want to do cassette tape based field recordings, mainly voice, as I've indicated earlier, I'm going to be using this microcassette unit with probably this microphone, and it's a really nice kind of a little thing, a little stretchy cord there.
With the results from the Shure microphone using headphones, I thought it was actually better than I remember the last time I tested this.
I was talking to somebody just the other day about this cassette tape thing. In fact, I was down at a coffee shop, the Rust is Gold coffee shop here in Albuquerque that just opened up recently. The thing with audio tape, I use the analogy that magnetic tape to me is kind of reminiscent of film, and these magnetic tape recorders are kind of like film cameras to me, in the sense that you have, a physical object that embodies the media, embodies the recording, and it's kind of inseparable from the media and the recording. They're inseparable. They're not easy to compromise in the way that a lot of digital media can be compromised because of the nature of the physicality of the medium itself. So I think that's one thing that attracts me to it. And also, similar to maybe typewriters and film cameras, there's a certain physical aesthetic to it that on the one hand you could look at it as a limitation. Like, for instance, film is grainy, perhaps, if it's small format. It has a limited ISO range. You might have a limited dynamic range if it's like transparency film, compared to digital that has flexible ISO, not as noisy. Film requires processing to be able to see the picture, and maybe printing to be able to see a positive picture, whereas digital is very immediate. In similar ways, typewriters, right? Typewriters are mechanical. You have to interface with them with your fingers. You end up with an imperfect typed piece on a piece of paper, not like a perfectly word processed document in the computer. And the similar analogy is with magnetic tape. You have physical medium represented by magnetic analog type signals, amplitude modulated. It's going to have a little bit of hiss, a little bit of limitations in its dynamic range and the high and lows, etc., etc. But one person's limitation is another person's aesthetic beauty. There's a lot of people that really enjoy tape. Now, there is some high-end magnetic tape out there, quarter-inch 2-track reel-to-reel, or some really high-end compact cassette decks like the Nakamichis and whatever that are using metal tape formulations, and really good 3-head machines that can really rival higher end formats. But there's also this aesthetic around tape where it's kind of a lower end aesthetic that people love, and people harken back to the days of the 70s and 80s when tape is inexpensive and easy to use, easy to distribute. And in fact, it still is easy to distribute and easy to use, but you got to have a good machine, as I found out. Well, as you probably know, I get fascinated by these things, and I go off in little tangents, but suffice it to say, my interest right now isn't really in a music-grade recording on magnetic tape. It's really about field recording and voice recording, and it's really about the flexibility and archivability of tapes. As you might have seen from one of the previous episodes, these two tapes right here are from the late 1970s, micro cassette, and they still play. Okay, so what was going on in 1978 technologically? Well, let's see, the Apple II computer maybe just came out. The S100 bus, S200 bus, CPM computers were still going strong. The IBM PC had not yet been released, so there was no DOS, no Windows yet. That was a long time ago in technology terms. But these things, you can still play them. Now, I don't know how many people out there have 8-inch floppy disks. The early computers used 8-inch floppy disk drives, but if you had an 8-inch floppy disk, you'd be hard-pressed to have a disk drive that would even work to play it, or a computer that you could interface that drive into to drive it. So, again, there's something to be said for these formats like this, these low-end formats that persist technologically over the decades. Well, this is Joe Van Cleve. Yes, I love magnetic tape. I want to get more into it, and we're going to be doing more about it in the future. Until next time, you guys have yourselves a great day.